What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Real Sports Science Podcast. My name's David, PhD student at Loughborough University.
And I'm Matt, head strength and conditioning coach within rugby. David, what are we doing here?
Yeah, good question, Matt. Well, we started this podcast to share the highs and the lows of our journey as we start careers as sports science practitioners.
That's right, and we are excited for all of you to be side by side with us through all the mud, sweat, and unpaid volunteer placements.
Yeah, Matt, that sounds personal. But hey, it's not just us. We've got some amazing guests that come onto the podcast as well.
We'll be getting their perspective and learning from their experiences to help us grow in our developing careers and in our current roles.
Yeah, that's right. So hey, if that's up your alley or you just want to come and learn alongside us, we'd love to have you come along.
So whether for the first time or not, welcome to the RSS podcast.
Let's go.
Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of the RSS podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Julian Dale. He is a current physical instructor for the Army. He's in charge of the physical training and development of Phase 2 military recruits and permanent military staff. He has previously worked for the England RFU as an England rugby school mentor for 2 years. And he also has got his bachelor's in strength and conditioning from University of Winchester, as well as completing a master's in sport and exercise. So yeah, welcome Julian.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Tell us a bit more about yourself.
As stated, undergraduate degree was in strength conditioning in Winchester. So that was centred, my master's was centred around the biomechanics of kicking and how a coaching class could improve kicking percentage. Within that, I did an England rugby school mentor course. So that sort of improved the coaching side of rugby. And then from that, I got really interested in coaching rugby because I've played rugby from probably the age of 10, probably. So I've always enjoyed rugby. And then from that job, I enjoyed coaching. So then in my Masters of Research, I did my dissertation on fundamental movement skills. And then that just progressed into more coaching opportunities, such as I do loosely London Irish coaching, well, what was London Irish, academy coaching. And I do sort of freelance coaching here and there. So that was that. And then once I finished my degree, I got a job at Winchester College as a physical recreation assistant. And then from that, I got a job as a civilian PTI for the military. And that's where I've currently been for the last year and a half. And I'm absolutely loving it.
How was... Sorry, got a bit of a cold. How was the sort of jump from rugby to military? I mean, it's sort of... I don't know if it's a rare thing, but for me it would be like quite a big decision or something you always knew that you'd want to go into military. So was it something you dreamt about as being a kid, like trying to go through that military sort of way, or?
So military, I hadn't even looked at it at all. My first interaction with the military was my interview going through the gates to get my ID card. That was my first interaction with the military at all. So I saw the job on LinkedIn and thought, I'll go for it. Worst happen, I say no. Best can happen, I'll get an interview. So I thought I'm quite fresh on the block. I'll go for it, and went for the interview, which was quite terrifying. Going through just out of university, going through barbed wire fences, ID checks, car getting a look at, and then went for the interview, which was really good. Biggest interview I've done because I had 3 civilian and 2 military staff interviewing me. So that was quite big in terms of an interview, being a 23-year-old when I went for it. And then, lo and behold, I got the job, which I was very, very happy about. And it was a very weird transition, because going from university coaching, when it's quite lackadaisical and relaxed, having to get used to military style of sort of teaching, coaching, leading a class. So I had to learn about words of command, different rank slides, how to dress different people, how to control a sort of troop of 30, 40, 50 people, different numbers, talking in the sort of military terms of how you explain one thing, because I might just say, on your marks, get set, go, whereas word of commands in military are completely different. So there's a slight adaptation, which I'm still learning about, completely still learning about, because I've only been in the world for about a year, the military environment for about a year. So it was a good change, but a difficult change to adapt my way of coaching and the way I'm delivering and the way I'm interacting with people, but fully enjoying it.
How did you prep for that interview? Like going in not knowing much about the military, like I
was gonna
wouldn't even
say.
know how to start prepping for that. Did you use like online resources to try to figure out, just kind of, yeah, how did you prep for an interview where you're not really sure about kind of the context? Because I guess that goes for everyone when, they just apply for jobs that they think would be unreal opportunities, but they might not have too much experience in that area. So how did you apply, or not? How did you prep for that interview?
In terms of prep, it was a lot of research because I backed myself in terms of physical coaching of a squat and such. I sort of backed myself on that side of things. But in terms of the way the military did phys, I hadn't a clue what the hell they did. So a lot of it was research, and they've got sort of key structures and foundations of phys that they run by. So for me, it was looking at those foundations, seeing how I apply them in the gym, and seeing how I can apply them to their job and their aspects, what they do in the field as such. So if it was a pull, it could be a pull-up, or in their field it might be getting over a wall. If it was a push, it could be a shoulder press, and in terms of their field, it could be pushing an ammo tin above their head. So it was trying to relate movements to in the gym to in the field, and sort of bits where I hadn't really thought of it before, because I never thought about, I'm going to push an ammo tin above my head or pull myself against the wall, rotate around to deliver a bit of cargo. So it was learning how you can use gym movements in everyday movements in a military lifestyle, which was quite interesting. So I fully enjoyed that side of it. And then other bits with the interview were sort of character questions like normal. So that was quite nice, having to do different sort of character questions. So it was a bit more in-depth in how you deal with different situationals and different people, different lifestyles. So that was quite good. So it was definitely reading more into how I interact with people, how I interact with the gym, and how I interact with the gym outside of the gym in everyday environments.
Yeah, geez, and like, what was the difference between rugby and like sort of training rugby players and training like sort of the recruits you have now? Is it like different sort of feedback you get from a session, or yeah, as I know you touched upon some of the movements that you change, like for example climbing a wall for a pull, but do you do any specific gym work? Yeah, how does it compare really?
So in terms of rugby play, you very much focus on strength, power and speed. And those things we do in military gym sessions, but we have to involve a lot more and a lot of other stuff. So, for example, mental resilience sessions we have to do all the time, because there might be an exercise for 2, 3, 4 weeks with limited rations. We still have to do physical tasks. We have to do weighted marches, so tab 2, 4, 6K with 35 kilograms on our back. I had to learn how to train tactical movement bounds, such as on the floor, leopard crawl, get up, run down. So it was extremely different learning how to coach a military personnel and civilian rugby personnel, because the trainings are extremely different, because we're building people to do their job in the military but also do stuff in the field, because they have to be able to cover a large variety of skills and tasks out in the field, instead of just, where in broad terms rugby player, run, catch, pass. Military have to do all sorts, because it's not about just standing up and delivering something or standing up and firing a gun. It's way more than that. So it was, for me, really interesting learning how to teach a full soldier, not just a tiny aspect of a sport such as rugby.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
I think just sorry, go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say, it's funny because you're trying to get these people to be the strongest as possible, as well as being agile.
Yes.
Trying to make them quick, but also have a big endurance. So it's like you're trying to hit every aspect to its full extent. So it's very, very interesting. And it's just, we could talk for hours on how the hell do you do that? Because we're always taught about in sport, concurrent training, it sometimes works, but is it the actual best? You know, how do you hit every target to that maximum area as best as possible when, I don't know what sort of time frames you have essentially. Yeah, it's quite crazy. Sorry, David, carry on.
Yeah, I guess just like off of the back of what you're just saying there, Matt, like concurrent training. I think do you notice a big difference in kind of how you approach training? Because like in performance sport, you're very like performance driven, and this is for like performance on the field. Whereas in this case, you want them to be like functional, to be able to do their role, and it's not really like how much they lift or how fast they can move, but because you need that whole rounded. So it's okay to be able to maybe, you know, they're not as strong as maybe as a rugby player would, but that's okay because they also can run 20 miles with the 20 kilos on their back, which that would crush me if I tried to do that. So I think like how do you go about like making sure that it's well balanced in that way, that you're not, you know, focusing too much on one thing, or also not giving them too much of everything because you need them to be good in all those different areas.
So in terms of programming, when we have the recruits during the phase 2 where we have them, they're with us for 13 weeks. So we have a 13-week cycle for them. And within that program, we hit strength and conditioning training, we hit Tabata training, we hit circuit training, we hit green phys, such as, so green phys could be your weighted marches, could be your leopard crawling, could be elements of the tests that they have to do. They need to do combat training, which could be gun runs, log runs, obstacle courses. We have to do MAS training, so maximal aerobic speed training. We have to do speed and agility training. So in terms of the 13-week program, we have them for 5 days a week for an hour a day. So we do have a lot to cramp into their program. So it's quite hard to make sure we get the balance right, to make sure we don't overwork them on one side and underwork them on another. So it is quite key to make sure we equal the balance out. But within that, we have sort of certain flavours of the month as such. So one month might be, right, we're going to focus a bit more on this for this part of your program, this part of this for this part of your program. It's definitely finding a balance which works for them. And so far, I think the balance is quite good because everyone we've done so far is performing quite well in the tests, performing quite well in the gym, and performing quite well when they go on exercise. So it's definitely hard getting a balance, and it has taken maybe 3 or 4 attempts to get this program done because there's a lot of trial and error, making sure we don't overload one and sort of disregard another aspect. But yeah, programming takes a lot of long, hard looks and lesson planning. So yeah, the programming is extremely key.
And then are there ways that you can test them to see if they are hitting those markers?
So we have 2 types of tests that we run. We have a biannual test, which is 6 monthly, and an annual test, which is every year. So the biannual test is a review. So on that one we do pull-ups, so how many pull-ups you can do, broad jump, hex bar deadlift, sprints, and a 2K best effort, and a med ball throw. So even with those, we're still targeting. So pull-ups is upper body strength, med ball throw is upper body power, lower body you've got, with the hex bar you've got lower body strength, broad jump, lower body power. Then with the 2K best effort is aerobic speed, sprints, anaerobic speed, and then we also do BCMs. So we do test them every 6 months to make sure they're staying concurrent. And with there are a point system and pass and fail marks, so we can make sure they're passing. And then the annual one every year, that's where it's more green and combat based, and that has 7 elements into it, which I can go into. So in there we've got a 2K tab, which is a best effort. So 2K tab lead, then a 2K best effort. Then they go into movement bounds, then they go into incremental lifts, then they go into repeated lifting carries, then they go into drag bags, then they go into jerry can carries, and then they go into deadlifts. So very broad full body tests which target every element of the soldier to make sure they're role appropriate, because each element, if you didn't have one, you wouldn't be able to do the other. So it's all very specific to their role and what they need to fill out on the field.
Sounds like
are you allowed to say what the best 2K time is that you've seen, or just some of the
best
like
2K
best
run
times
that
that
I've
you've seen,
seen,
or like pull-ups?
Best effort 2K run unweighted was 6:30. I think was the best 2K I saw, was a 6:30. Yeah,
quick.
Rapid, absolutely rapid.
That's cool. What about most pull-ups?
Most pull-ups I've seen, I think recently we had a 14.5 today. I think 14.5, 15 may have been the most I've seen.
Nice. That's impressive.
Yeah, I can do it. So they bet
David will break that record.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
if we add our scores together.
So yeah, yeah, exactly, and times it
Yeah.
by two maybe. If just so you work with phase two recruits. Like, do you see those people for those 15 weeks and then they move on to whatever, wherever they go after that? Do you ever see them again? And if and yeah, that's the first question. I
So
think
I had them for
we'll
15
leave it there
weeks. So
first.
that's once they finish phase two. Once they finish phase two, so phase two is initial trade training. So this is where we've got the raw soldier as this is their foundation of soldiering. What we're doing now is, so I just have them in the gym to get them fit to pass their annual test at the year. So for them to move on in their progression, they need to pass that annual test, the one with the multiple elements in the field. And once they've passed that, they then go into their frontline unit, which is then, so I might see some again because some units are at my base, some units aren't. But in terms of circulation, I might see them every 2, 3, 4 years. I might see them straight away. It just depends where they go once I finish with them for the 15 weeks.
Right, right. That's so interesting. Like, I just have no idea of
Yeah.
any of that, how that works. So it's really interesting to hear. So you do see some people regularly because they're based where you are, but some people it's that 15 weeks, then you might not see them for a while. Like, do you enjoy that mix up of some people you actually get to see and you're continuing to train them, and some people you don't? Like, do you have a preference of one or the other?
I do enjoy it's sort of I enjoy both sort of thing because you have someone 15 weeks, then they go off, then you might see them again, come back in 6 months, a year, 2 years, and they're still improving, which is brilliant. And some people you keep with the whole way, and you see them improving from the day you've got them to day 600 or whatever. So it's really nice to see their journey with you helping them all the way. And some people we've helped for 3 courses of their journey, then they come back and they're still improving, and you've had a lasting impression. So both sides of the journey are really interesting and really enjoyable.
Yeah.
One thing we speak about a ton on here is the coach-athlete relationship. Is that harder to sort of build as there's so much turnaround with some of the people? Like, how do you learn a lot about, obviously 15 weeks, you get to learn about these people very intensely, going through what they have to go through. But is it harder to manage, would you say, than when you were with rugby players, essentially?
I think the only thing hard to manage is the sort of the appropriate relation to have, because you have to stay rigid and they need to give you enough respect. So obviously you're still in their chain of command in the military, so I can't be all pally best mate fist bumps. I still must have that respect and the chain of command and sort of making sure they're not crossing the line. Because in terms of rugby, you can be quite pally as much as you like, whereas in me, I have to make sure I don't cross the line of losing my control of the course or losing the respect that they give me, because otherwise they just won't listen. So it's definitely finding the right line, because you can be as nice as you want, but making sure they don't cross the line. So you definitely need to learn who they are and what makes them click outside of the gym, so you can target them appropriately and how to deal with them. But it's making sure you can bring that back to make sure you keep up the respect, chain of command, and being rigid with your sort of approach of lesson.
Yeah. That is so interesting, because it's you're training people, but you're not just training athletes or just someone who wants to get fit, like this, the military, and that comes with then obviously way more responsibility. Have you ever given a fist bump to anyone?
I have given a few. I do apologise. I have given a few fist bumps. Yeah, in my time, I've given a few. Yes.
What is there, like, not allowed only if it's like they're on the same level of command? Then it's okay.
It's finding the right environment, right audience. Because also I wouldn't do it in front of people who are super high on top of me.
Right.
But I'd probably do it around people who are the same level as me. Yes.
Yeah. 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 It's so interesting. If you left the military and took the experiences that you gained in the military and how they train and some of the different trainings that you do, and you went back to, say, a rugby team, do you think how you train that rugby team would change drastically from how you used to train a rugby team before?
I think definitely it would influence how we do it, because you can take so many things you do from the military into a sport such as rugby. So forearm strength, when you do a jerry can carry holding 25 kilogram jerry cans in your arms, you've got to run 6 meters out and 60 meters back. In terms of forearm strength in rugby, that's a handoff, that's holding the ball, that's ripping the ball. Such things as drag bags, that sort of leaning back using your legs to power backwards, and that sort of thing can improve your explosive strength to go forward into a tackle. Deadlifts, we use them all the time, so I'd probably keep that the same. But definitely things such as, there's definitely elements you can take in from military style into rugby, and it would improve the game tenfold, no shadow of a doubt at all.
No, I agree. I mean, like, a lot of things, as you say, you want the soldier to be well-rounded and be the best at sort of everything possible as a physical attribute, and sort of you want that as well as rugby, so you could definitely feed it into them as well. And I mean, I'm sure they'd love it because some of those rugby boys do love a bit of hard graft as well, but
Yes.
probably not as much as the recruits that you've got coming in. And then last bit to round off this bit of questioning, unless David's got something else.
Depends what you're asking.
Oh no, I was just gonna ask, like, what so the whole premise of this season is to try get so many different perspectives on wintering or off-season training. So the last bit I wanted to ask was, what does sort of wintering / off-season mean to you?
Me as in my job now, or just in life as a coach?
Life as a coach, and then you can go into your job now.
So wintering and off season is obviously what the goal you're aiming for, because obviously in the year cycle, your year training cycle, year program, you'll have a target you want to hit by winter or a target you want to hit by off season. So just making sure that if you haven't hit that target by then, could you taper off your training at beginning and off season to make sure you have a nice gentle off season, and then taper it back up when the season starts to get the impact. Winter, it's getting a bit colder, so you could change your environment a bit. So instead of constantly doing outdoor stuff, bring it indoors and still target things. But for me as a coach, it's just making sure that the levels stay appropriate. Because obviously, rugby, I play civvy rugby, which, because we've got a few more games left, it'd be tapering off slightly towards the end, but making sure we're tapering back up before the season starts again after Christmas. Just making sure that you're not losing the momentum you've gained throughout the year, but staying consistent. Because if you just say, right, let's taper off now, I've got 2 games left, let's chill out, let's taper off now, those 2 games will have a massive effect, and then I won't be back playing for another 2 months, month and a half, and by that time, would I have trained at all? It's Christmas, I'd probably have just trained, opening my mouth, putting Christmas food in. So it's definitely just looking at a year as a whole and make sure you're getting the aims you want to. And then in terms of my job now, winter has no effect on what we do at all. 0 effect. We still have to do lessons we've planned. They still have to do everything we've told them to do. They still have to go outside and do weighted marches and do tests in the rain, sun, shine. They have to do it all. Just the worst thing is that I have to be out there as well with them. So yeah, winter doesn't affect the military at all, which is quite good, I think, because that's where the mental resilience side comes in. Because we don't want them to go out in the cold and just go, I don't fancy doing it today, let me go inside in the warm, because you don't really have that choice if you're on exercise or deployed. So mental resilience is a big side where even doing it in freezing cold weather as a -2 weighted walk on a Monday morning, that mental resilience is building without them knowing, because they've got out of bed early in the morning, it's 8 o'clock, let's go out for a walk, and just steadily walk around the field in -2 degrees, then get back in. So without them knowing, we're building that mental resilience without calling it mental resilience. So yeah, winter doesn't change our programming at all or our training at all.
And then, yeah, geez. And then, so do you program anything differently? Like, do you lessen the amount of volume that they're experiencing during wintering, or is it still the same? Or even some parts you increase different things? Like, do you alter anything just because it is sort of a winter
The program
period?
stays exactly the same no matter what time of year you are there. We might just change it slightly because of
Okay.
safety. So if we're let's say I've scheduled in, we're going to do leopard crawls. If it's -10 degrees and the ground's absolutely ice solid, I'd dynamically risk assess and change it. Or if it's too dark, too wet, because underfoot we can't do sprinting, I might change it to indoors. So we still try and target the same stuff, just change it for safety aspect, because I don't want to go out there and ruin my entire troop of lessons and then have them not for the next 2 weeks and injure them. So it's making sure that we look more in the safety aspect. But the program, no matter what, if it's summer, winter, autumn, it stays exactly the same all year round.
And then, yeah, that's interesting because I know there's like this theory of like periodization where you sort of try get a stimulus, So then you sort of, or I can't remember if it's up or down. Jeez, I haven't looked at it in ages. But you give them a stimulus, they recover from it. There's that period of recovery, and then they're back to that sort of peak performance. Is it hard because some people use this off-season or wintering period to sort of get their bodies back into shape, or sort out any of their injuries that they need to get sorted, or they use that period as just let's pound on the volume, let's get massive. How do you sort of program that for them? But as well, I completely lost my line of questioning. How do you program that? But also, how do you make sure that they're always ready for deployment in a way, so they're always hitting that peak performance, even with all the fluctuations that they experience?
So within their 15-week program, we do have deload weeks. So we make sure we build them up, then have a week or two deload, then we build them back up, a week or two deload. So we do include that deload week to make sure we're not just burning them out. So there's no point burning someone out for 15 weeks. We're going to gain no results. We just have a fatigued athlete, a fatigued staff by the end of it. So we do integrate those deload weeks. We integrate mobility sessions throughout the weeks as well. So we have stretching sessions, we have mobility sessions to make sure that we are loosening them off as we go. So we do taper sessions, such as one session might be a strength session, one might be a power session. Some sessions might purely be based on endurance. So we do target the different elements of strength training and to taper it to make sure we don't fatigue them all at the end.
If you say that all year round the program's the exact same, does that include like when they come back let's say they are on deployment, they come back, is there a point then when you get, okay, we're going to train you up again and slowly bring you back in, or do they just jump in to the program that everyone else is in? Because I'm sure not everyone's gone at the same time. There's some people here, some people there, so, like they're everywhere, and I'm sure their schedules don't match up. They come back every Monday. So like, how do you deal with for the people that you see regularly, who are based where you're based? How do you deal with that kind of, or manage, I guess, different individuals possibly needing different things at different times depending on where they are in their work schedule?
So if someone's
that.
just been deployed and they come back, we do the biannual 6-monthly test, which is the review to make sure they're fit and healthy to come back into mainstream PT. Because we wouldn't put someone in the mainstream unless we know they are foundationally fit to perform what we need them to perform during sessions. So we do that 6-monthly biannual test. And if they don't pass it, which most people do, if they don't pass it, we'll just give them a retake. But yeah, after deployment, we give them the ease back in biannual test to make sure that they've got the foundations before they jump onto mainstream. So it's not straight away, let's go burn you out straight away. It might take them a week or two before they even come back to phys, because they might have other stuff to do with their job. So yeah, they come back in, do the biannual test, then go back into mainstream phys.
Okay, and I guess how much on a day-to-day basis? How much, again, for the people who you see all the time? How much control do you have over their S&C program? Are you there? Like, do you need to make changes on the fly if like injuries pop up? It's not a sport, but they still get injured, or they come back with certain things that maybe there's only certain aspects of the training that they aren't able to do. Like, how do you work with them, or like other people, like physios, for example, if I'm thinking of other people that would be in a sports team that kind of have influence over that S&C program that they have? Like, how do you work with those other people in those kind of situations?
So in terms of their program, we still design the program for permanent staff as well as trainees. We design both programs. So we're in charge of what we schedule, when we schedule it. In terms of if someone's injured, they'll go to the med centre, they'll get a sheet saying what they can and can't do, and then when they come to us, we write them a programme to build them back up to what they need to build up to before they can join. So for example, if someone's got a foot injury, that once they've done their different stages of rehab, we then have them for a build up to walk training or build up to run training, and that's when we give them a 6-week programme to do what during mainstream phys they'll go off and do their programme. So we design different programs for different injuries to make sure people are rehabbed correctly, building on the rehab and the full body, not neglecting the rest of the bed or the rest of the body. So yeah, we do build up programs for people. So we work quite closely with the med centre to make sure that they're not giving the person wrong information. We're not giving the person the wrong exercises to do if they can't do them. So yeah, we work quite closely with Med Centre.
Yeah, it's so interesting because obviously, like, training does stay. You don't have an off season, but you kind of have an off season when they're not there or when they're deployed somewhere. That's kind of they're not doing nothing, that's for sure. But they're not, training how they would, like, or I guess when they're not.
How's that
They're
for
not on
active
the
recovery?
beach, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's like the peak time. It's just so their peak time is also their off season because they're not training. Like that. That's really really interesting. So I guess the next question that I would have is how would you then prepare someone for the short term versus the long term? Like, I guess we had a couple weeks ago an athletics coach, and Matt, we were chatting about how does she kind of program for the next season versus, let's say, like an Olympic cycle, or is there that short term and long term goals? Like, would you have that a similar thing where you have short and long term goals, or is it more just like, what's this next 6 weeks look like, and then just take it by that? All right, come back from a deployment. What does the next month look like?
So in terms of the long-term aim,
and
so the
take it like
long-term
that.
aim of that after that 15-week block of permanent staff is to pass that annual test. So our entire program is built up around passing that final test. So the entire 15 weeks, without the trainees knowing it, is a build-up program. So the program is targeting different parts of that annual test to make sure that they can pass out of it. So that's probably the long term, would be making sure they can pass that test without them knowing that we're doing build-up training. Every single session is a build-up training targeting a different element of that test. And in terms of the short term, would be that biennial test, or if someone's on deployment, they have something called a pre-deployment package, which is where it's sort of a really condensed, in detail package of what they need to do. Nice, quick, sharp, 3-4 week intense course to do before they go on pre-deployment.
Okay. So it is, I guess the longest term would be kind of that year annual, or and I guess that's kind of cut up by the 6 month one, which I guess is kind of just like a precursor to the year anyways. And that happens just every year.
Every year
the
they have to
test
take that
make
test.
sure
If
that
they don't pass that
standards.
test, they're going to retake it, or they get sort of medically downgraded with it to make sure they get past it. So unless they pass it, they can't sort of carry on with phys or can't carry on with their duties. So they've got to stay current in phys and current in their sort of body to make sure they can pass that test at the end. And everyone has to do that every single year. Every soldier has to do it. I don't
do you do it?
No,
do you have to do it as well?
To do it. We're all good.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Do you?
Yeah.
Do they give you a bad time for that because you don't have to do it, but you're having them?
Yeah, a few people make comments, but we're all good. But that's dealt with swiftly. We're all good.
Swift. That's right. Yeah. That's right.
So and then I was speaking to one of my mates who won't stop talking about his RAF Mick experiences. He plays for Thomas Julians, the club I work at, but he always told me about like a PTI. So what's the difference between a PTI and your sort of role?
So, military PTI, basically they have to go out and do a qualification. They have to go out and do a course, but it's almost a second job for them being a PTI. So they have the main job which they have to do, and the PTI role is more of a part-time role they can do if their squadron lets them go or if their boss lets them go. Whereas for me, being a civilian PTI, my sole job is that gym. I have no other duties apart from training these troops, training the soldiers, and making sure that they stay fit and stay concurrent with their phys. So I do the same lessons they do. I do the same programs they do. The only difference is they've gone off to do a military PTI course and they have a second job, whereas me, I haven't had to go away to do a military PTI course. I've had to have experience before this job to make sure I'm qualified to do the job.
Okay. All right. Because I remember looking after having that chat with him.
So are PTIs civilians as
They're
well?
Also, so some places have civilian PTIs, some have military. It just depends on how the base works. But the base I work has civilian PTIs.
Right. And would you consider, or is that even an option for you to be part of the military, working as your job now?
So for me to be a military PTI, I'd have to join the military, do phase 1, do phase 2, be on a frontline unit for 2 years, and then do the course. So it's a lot longer process than me just doing one interview and then getting
Right.
the job. So I could do it if I
Yeah.
wanted to, but I have to do all the stages of military before I even got close to doing my military PTI course.
Because that.
Right. Right. So it'd be the same thing that you're putting the people through now. You'd have to go through
Yes,
that and then
exactly.
be part of it, and then eventually go kind of in your specialty, which would happen to be the same job
Exactly.
you're
I'd
doing
have to do what I'm telling everyone else to do if I joined the military.
Oh.
Correct. Yes.
now. Yeah. Right.
Because
Right.
I remember after that conversation I had with him.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize that there was.
No, that's all.
Go ahead. Sorry,
That's
go
all good,
ahead,
that's
Matt.
all
I've cut you off.
No,
like
no, no.
3 times.
Carry on,
Sorry.
carry on.
I didn't know that there was like civilian jobs within the military. I just assumed that you were also military and had to go through and then decided that this was kind of
Neither
your
did I until I
specialty.
got the job. I hadn't a clue that this was a civilian opportunity at all. That's why I jumped at it when I saw it. So
Uh,
I was exactly the same as you. I thought I'd see the documentaries on TV. Obviously, they're all military personnel. There's no civilian jobs on military bases or anything. And then now I've been involved in it. There are more civilian jobs out there than people are aware of. Way more civilian jobs within the military than people are aware of. And I think it's quite good having the balance.
oh, really?
Because having balance means there's a different spread across the entire base. People interact a bit differently, and it just keeps everyone quite grounded and quite mellow. Instead of everyone being so rigid and uptight all the time, it gives a little leeway for everyone
Yeah.
to be a bit more relaxed in the environment which they're in, which is really nice. And that everyone works quite well together.
Yeah.
Because civilian staff still have the respect for military staff, but lets them work to military standards while being a civilian, which is quite nice. It means your standards are still quite high, even though you're still a civilian. So the two work really well, and they do work hand in hand, which is really nice.
Because I mean that's what I. So speaking to that person about sort of his time at the RAF, and like he was like, "Oh mate, you should look into becoming a PTI," and I was like, "Oh, I'd actually love that." So I looked into it and I thought, 2 years. Oh, I don't know about that one. I was like, whoa, have to go through all those tests, and I
Yeah.
thought, Jesus. And then it left my mind because I was like, yeah, I don't know if my heart's that into it to do something like that. But now understanding there's a whole different sort of line of a civilian side of things, it's definitely something I could look into in the
Yes.
future.
Yeah, because I looked online when I was a lot younger at the RAF PTI thing. I thought it's basically a 2-year job interview almost. That sort of RAF thing. You just do all the basic training, then you go off to do the PTI training. I've done a complete shortcut and did one interview and one lesson, and I was there. So instead of 2 years, I condensed it into about an hour and a half.
Jesus.
So I'm very, very blessed in
Yeah.
and making it a lot quicker for myself.
Jeez.
Yeah, and I guess if you don't, if being like, because I'm assuming then if you're part of the military, you'd have to do your minimum amounts of deployments as
You'd
well.
have to do military. You'd have to do
So-
minimum amount of service. Yeah, you'd have to do minimum service. Yes.
Service, right? Yeah, yeah. So I guess if that's not your passion, but you're really interested in making sure the people whose passion that is, that they get to do that and
Yes.
be in shape, then yeah, that's really interesting. Do civilians have a nickname on the base?
No, it's civvies. We're all just civvies, and everyone interacts quite nicely. No,
Civvies.
I would say there's not much
just
bad
short it
blood,
out.
if any, between civilian and military staff at all. There's very, very little bad blood between
Okay.
anyone, because a lot of people, we all work really well together.
Yeah.
So one office has military and civ. Well, most offices have military and civvy, and everyone works really well together. So I'd say there's almost next to zero bad blood between the two, which is really nice to see across the base, because it just means everyone works really well together, and you can approach basically anyone on the base and you'd be welcomed in, instead of there being like a wall or a guard up. It's everyone interacts really nicely together.
Is that something that you thought would be there before you got into it, like that kind of tension between the
I
two?
thought I'd be a lot more separate
Or
on
you just had no
eggshells when
idea?
I walk around the base. I thought I'd be a lot more on eggshells, thinking I'm a 23-year-old civilian, walk around a military camp with this rank walking past me, this rank walking past me, I've got to talk to this rank. I thought it'd be a lot more on eggshells, because obviously I didn't know who the military were or how to address people before I even got there. But now I've got there, I've realised that everyone is extremely welcoming and extremely nice. So yeah, it was really nice getting in there and knowing that it's a very welcoming environment to be in.
Yeah, yeah. We're going way back now.
Yeah.
Switching gears. Sorry. it's something that just popped in my head that I wanted to ask, but I forgot. You talked about like the resiliency uh, of these people. Um, is that something that you've also noticed in yourself? Because, like you said, you can't just set their S&C programs and then let them go. You're there doing it, right? And so when they're on like, this is again me assuming if they go on a 20-mile run, like you're going
Yes,
with them.
so I've definitely found
Yeah.
myself more willing to do phys because never in my life did I think, when I was a university student, 19, hungover as hell on a Thursday, thinking in 3 years' time I'd be outside at 7:30 in the morning doing a 4K run in -2 degrees. So it's definitely made me more get up and
Yeah.
go, which is really nice. So I definitely appreciate
Yeah.
what the job's given me in terms of my own attitude towards phys and towards workload, which is really good. I've definitely improved in that sense from the job, which is really good.
Yeah, and I guess in a team aspect, we talk about getting buy-in for your players, and I guess like being in the military, you're kind of signed up, and that's your buy-in a little bit. Um, but I'm sure there's people that struggle with that at the start, like needing to do this or that, or not used to it. Like, how do you go about getting buy-in from them, other than you're outranking them and they have to do what you say,
The
otherwise
buy-in's
they're
unreal.
getting kicked out. Which maybe that's it, maybe that is it. But how do you go about like building that buy-in, or like Matt, that athlete coach relationship kind of.
It's a lot about just keeping morale high and making sure the lessons stay enjoyable, because you don't want to do the same lesson 10 days in a row. It's making sure our lessons are very varied in what we do. Making sure we don't just go on runs every day of the week. Because otherwise, who's going to go on a run 5 times a week unless you're an absolute run head? Not many people. So it's making sure that our lessons stay enjoyable, even our warm-ups stay enjoyable, because you don't want us to do the same warm-up every single time. So it's bringing in different games during warm-ups, and then during the sessions, just keeping morale high, so going around everyone, having a quick 2-minute chat with everyone, making sure they're enjoying the session, they're enjoying life, how's life outside of work. So it's like I'll probably do in a rugby pitch. If I was a rugby coach, I'd do exactly the same thing. Make sure our sessions are varied, so we don't just plateau and make it very basic for everyone. It's making sure that you don't just stay at one level all the time. It's making sure you get different varieties in there for everyone to enjoy.
Yeah, it is. It's just like getting the best out of people, because I guess they are there and they've chose to do this, and it's not like a team that I guess you could get benched or whatever if you're not performing, or just get but like just trying to get the best out of people because they're there. So, and if they're, like you said, not enjoying it, then either they're gonna quit or keep going, but they're not gonna probably be working at their fullest potential when they actually need to be, when they're not on base. Yeah.
I mean,
It's
it's a
really
completely
interesting.
different sort of motivation, isn't it? It's
Matt,
like,
go ahead.
rugby players sort of, you just, obviously they have to be there. So it's not like rugby players are sometimes like, oh, I enjoy being here, or maybe I don't like it, so I won't come you've got to be there. So you sort of have to tap into a whole different sort of area of motivation. Um, yeah, I had other questions surrounding like, are there any nutritional changes you have to make, or any sort of mental changes that, when going into those sort of winter periods? But then from what you said, I guess like nothing changes. So are there any changes across those areas? Because if
So in terms of
Yeah.
we don't change nutrition, we give nutritional advice. So obviously we do BCMs. So if people flag up as high risk or very high risk, we do offer nutritional support. So we give them a specified program for their goal. We give them monthly support. We give them a food diary. We give them nutritional advice. So the support systems are there in terms of nutrition. But in terms of changing it, we don't advise them on changing. We only advise if they're flagging a bit risky, because we want to make sure that they're staying in tip-top shape so they could leave whenever they have to on deployment. So it's staying on top of making sure that they're in the best shape they can be. And in terms of mental, I mean, everyone sort of winds down a bit towards Christmas. Everyone mentally does. You think, I've got a couple of weeks off now, I'm going to sit there, probably drink too much, eat too much. So it's just staying on top of making sure our lessons are enjoyable, getting around everyone, and keeping it nice, consistent, and making sure we keep that buy-in. So we've got different sort of circuits on. So we've got like 12 Days of Christmas circuit. We've got circuits along with songs and stuff. So it's keeping it enjoyable towards this wind down to Christmas.
Yeah, yeah, it is. So you're there, kind of supporting them, not if they need something, you're there? And is that something that you kind of put across to them? Like, this is the plan. These are kind of the resources that we have available. If you need X, Y, and Z, you come to, X, Y, and Z. And do you find that people are pretty good with coming to you or whoever? Would it be you who they come to for
Yeah,
that nutritional advice,
me and one
or
other,
kind of his
me and
first
one
point
other
of
are the
call?
nutritional sort of advisors for the base. So it's not a once you flagged up, you have to do it. It's an option. We give them an option. Would you want guidance, or are you happy doing it on your own? So if they want us guidance, yeah, we give them the monthly weigh-ins. And if they don't want our guidance, we might just give them a rough estimate of, look, this is what you could work on. You could cut this out, cut this in, just do this, and then we'd leave them to it, but still do the weigh-ins with them. But it's less one-on-one if they opt out. But if they opt in, it's not as such one-on-one sitting across the table, sort of shouting at them. It's definitely just an open conversation about how they do at the moment and how could they just change it slightly, just improve. So yeah, it's an open forum for them to opt in or opt out on.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. Well, we have one more thing which we do with all of the guests who we come on, which is quick fire questions. Pun definitely intended there for this episode. But before, and Matt will take you through that. But before that, we just want to say a huge thank you for coming on, because this is the most that I've ever learned of any or talked to really anyone in the military. So I think the reason we want to do a series in this podcast moving forward is just being able to get all these different perspectives of people that we usually wouldn't talk to, especially working in performance. Someone in the military is something that I've never had the chance to talk to. So really, really, really cool to get your perspective on it. Or just that nothing changes and then end of story.
Well, no, thanks for having me on. Thanks for having me on. Really enjoyed it. Thanks very much, guys.
Cheers.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. So without further ado, one more thing. Quick fire questions, usually like 5 just kind of fun questions that can range from what color would you be if
What's
you
the
were
most
color
secretive base? What's the location of the most
shoe
secretive
size?
base in England? Like that sort of stuff. Just nice playful questions.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it has to be you can't think about these questions. It's got to be straight off the top of the head.
Right, Matt, take.
Just before we go into that,
Got it.
thanks for all of that. And if there's ever a possibility, of like us doing like either a podcast live or even coming down, just maybe like a video in the future. Yeah, we'd definitely love to see what we could get through.
Yeah, lovely. We'll definitely stay in touch, gents. Definitely stay in touch.
All right, onto the
Put us
rapid
through
fire
the
questions. So, what is your go-to lazy dinner?
Mac and cheese.
Nice. What motivates you the most?
Nice.
Yeah.
Results.
Nice. Have you ever won a contest at the army, like any sort of run or pull-ups on that day against someone else?
No, I've been a loser my entire life.
What was your last impulse buy?
Last impulse buy was peeler. Yeah.
A peeler.
Laser
Like a
precision.
potato
Potato peeler.
peeler.
I needed one and I bought one. Yeah.
Night vision one.
Yeah.
And then finally, like what quote resonates with you, or what quote have you used with the team, or that you've seen around?
A quote I use a lot is be egoless. So don't go in there thinking you're the best out of everyone. Go in there with an open mind, open forum, and just sort of feed off everyone else and feed into everyone else. So being egoless in any environment, I think, works very well.
Amazing. There you go. Way to round it off.
That's
Cheers
great.
for that. Thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah. Julian, really, really appreciate
No, thanks
it.
very much, guys. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on.
That was an unbelievable interview.
It was quite, yeah. It was nice going in there with an open mind, because I thought I came in there with assumptions, and then after you started speaking, it threw me off so what do you do during a winter? No, we don't change anything. So that threw me off, and we were just like, wow. And why didn't I think of that? Obviously, they wouldn't change anything. my civilian mind couldn't comprehend what if, you know. So no, it was very interesting, and it's a perspective that I don't think we've ever had because we've always had athletes, you know. I don't think I've ever heard civilian that much in an interview or a conversation before, but it was mind-blowingly good.
I
We've always
know.
had athletes or coaches who have just trained people that like
Mm.
either they get paid to be there or they get there's a different sort of motivation. I couldn't quite touch on it, but there's a motivation on why they're there that's completely different to the people that are in the military on why they are
Yeah.
there, why they're turning up, why they because
Yeah.
they have to, but then you know,
Yeah, I know that I was trying to ask that question, and it was like because obviously you still need to motivate the people, but also like they're there for a reason. It's different for sports, you know. But maybe that's just because I've
yeah,
watched movies and it's like, you know, everyone in there is gung ho or whatever, and if you don't, you just get kicked out, right? So it's just like my naivety of not knowing anything about it. So that was really really interesting. Yeah, it was funny. It's like we have all these questions lined up of like, what do you do in this situation? How do you like manage the different needs of athletes? It's just the same.
they manage themselves actually. They manage themselves.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, I mean it
Yeah,
was
but I think the biggest positive from that is we came out of it without having the SWAT team come into my room for
yeah.
saying for
I
saying something
when you
I'm
click
not
record
supposed
and
to.
that red light started blinking, I did get a bit terrified. I sudden movements, you know, just in case someone's watching. Well, I asked a question. It was a
Yo,
quick
is it?
shutdown of no, and I thought, okay, that's the last time I'm asking a fun question. I'm sorry,
Yeah, yeah,
but no,
yeah. Before the interview, before the interview, just like chatting, like, hey, so like obviously we need to be careful. Like, what are the things we can say? What are the things we can't say? Right? And then it's like, hey, these are the things we can't say. Me just like crossing out all of the questions that I had. Like, oh yeah, 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 right, 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 right. Yeah, no, no, no,
so
no.
you like sports?
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah,
was
yeah,
it was
yeah.
crazy
If
to
you could
learn
be a
how
car,
they
what would
run.
you be?
Yeah, yeah. If I'm a worm, would you still love me? You know, all that sort of stuff. If it was crazy just to see how they run their operations differently. Like they don't have an off season. That's the funniest thing about it, I'd say. Obviously not the funniest thing, but like something that just one other thing I didn't think about is their active recovery is deployment. You know, their off season is deployment, which is
Yeah.
just
But it's also
a
like when
completely.
what they're like peaking for, if you want to call it a peak, right? I guess though
It's an
it's just
off
like
season peak.
yeah, and then you come back off that just go right into training again. No, they don't. But I guess it's so interesting because I think as like performance working in performance sport, you get so caught up into like there's a specific goal or like you're peaking for the specific time, you know? Where there it's like they don't have specific like uh competitions or games that they're training for. It's like, we have these standards and we need you to be at this level of fitness. So it's almost like how do you stay motivated throughout the whole year or whatever? This would have been a good question to ask, you idiot. It's just I'm just thinking of good questions after we've interviewed him. Fantastic,
I thought
David.
I
Well
thought you called
done.
me an idiot. I got really sad. David, would you still like me if I was a
No,
worm?
me.
But anyways, carry on.
Yeah, like how do you because you're not peaking really. You're just like making sure that people are putting in the work to meet that standard of fitness that you need in all these different areas, right? So it's like if the if for the cutoff for pull-ups is 10 or whatever, right? It's not you're not trying to peak them so they can hit 10 at that time. It's like no, we're trying to get it so that they can hit 10 pull-ups throughout the whole year or at any time, right?
It's not a
Yeah,
peak,
so
it's
it's just a
like a
totally different.
maintenance at the peak. It's strange.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And yeah, exactly. So like, yeah, how do you plan so that they're maintaining
Or
this standard? Obviously, you want them to be over the standard. They're not just
but that's the thing.
squeaking through every
Is there
time, but
is there a maintenance? There's not, is there? Because you what these lot can't maintain. They're always trying to be the best of the best, hone their
yeah,
skills to the best of the best. So it's like, when does it stop? Jesus.
yeah. Yeah. Or but what if like say for cuz obviously there's like aerobic strength, or aerobic strength, well, I guess aerobic capacity, anaerobic capacity, speed, strength, right? Like all these different targets that they need to hit. And I'm guessing like for some people, for example, the 2K run would be easy, but hitting the strength would be hard. And for some person like they're an absolute unit, so they'd be able to hit the strength no problem, but like aerobic fitness is difficult. So how do you like do you change programs? No. uh We're thinking of some really good questions after the interview, aren't we?
Oh no, we're good at this stuff. Hey, we're
Yeah.
it's not like we're what.
I think you've dropped out. I can barely hear you.
So we're asking questions after the
Yeah.
pod, and I still don't know how my mic works. Welcome to the RSS podcast.
No, that was great. And
It was amazing.
imagine
Yeah.
if we could like somehow go
Meet up.
to an undisclosed location and just do a sick like have him imagine doing a 20-mile run with like a weighted bag.
Hey,
A
David.
like
Imagine a 1 mile one, a 1 mile one, a 1 mile run
one.
with. That's what I'd sound
Yeah.
like afterwards. Eh? Holy.
Holy. No, that was great. That was great. So we really hope that you enjoyed that as much as we did. Kind of opened our eyes to a whole different style of training, whole different population of training, whole different like job opportunities. You know, I didn't know that was an option, so I think that's really cool. So hopefully you enjoyed it. We'd love to know if you did. So let us know. Like, drop us an email, follow us on Instagram, follow us on YouTube. Comment on the stuff over there. Drop us a DM. Let us know what you thought. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Hopefully, you're learning just as much as we are, because that was great. So Matt, do you have anything else that you wanted to add on to that?
No. Nah. Yeah. No. We're enjoying this journey. We're enjoying interviewing these people. And we hope you are all enjoying it as well. So please let us know, because it gives us feedback. We're
Yeah.
trying to build a coach relationship with you guys.
That's
We're
right.
the
We're just not
athletes, you can be the
sure.
coaches.
Yeah, we're just not sure who's who really. We're
Yeah,
just the
yeah.
civvies. We're just on the sideline.
Hey, give me a year, I won't be. Well, no, I'll still be a civilian. Yeah, never mind. I'm still learning. But yeah,
That was awesome. Yeah, that was great. Matt, take us out.
this has been the RSS podcast. We're out.